There's a craving in our world for realness. The buzzword authentic is a buzzword for a reason. We want the people we do life with to be authentic. We want the brands and movements that we support to be authentic. We expect those who lead us to be authentic. We want the things that matter to us to be real, to be true. We want the experiences and encounters we have to be what they're supposed to be. But what about our faith? Are you willing to ask what an authentic relationship with Christ looks like? And once you find out, are you willing to do something about it? The good news, the Bible has the answers. And the Bible makes it clear. Living out a faith that's true and real in today's world, it starts with being a follower, a Christ follower.
All right. Good morning. How are y'all? Everybody good, I guess, right? Did y'all enjoy the band? All right. Look, I've been traveling for a long time, and these guys are by far the most humble, and they're some of my favorite people in the world. Everybody but DJ, man, I really enjoy hanging out with them. DJ will not let me join the band, so when I'm on the side, I usually turn my mic on and sing with them. They don't know where that's coming from until today. But anyway, very thankful to be here with you guys. Thankful to be able to share the stage with them. But just to share what God's laid on our heart. I'm not going. Does the camera add 10 pounds? I don't know. But anyway, you guys have revival coming, and so I want to tell you real quick. Revival is for the church. Man, the revival is for the church to be renewed, to be refocused, and I hope that we do that. I hope that every one of us in this room, we take time during this revival that's coming, that we get renewed, that we get refocused on why God has us here and the purpose and the plan that He has for each of us. But it's also a time for you to bring people that might not come otherwise. Man, God has a way of drawing people during revival. And one of the biggest ways that He does that is through His people. Man, guys, go invite somebody. Go tell them to come, even when they don't want to. I didn't want to go to church. When I was 15, when I gave my life to Christ, when I surrendered to ministry, I did not want to be here. And it wasn't this church. It was Northwoods Baptist Church, but I didn't want to be in the church building. And my youth pastor stayed on me, and he kept calling. Remember that we had house phones back then. Y'all remember those things? He would call, and he could hear me in the background telling my mom, look, tell him I'm not here, okay? So he stayed on me. He got me in church, and he invested in me. He poured into me, and I gave my life to Christ. And I told him, look, I want to preach. I want to travel and tell people about Jesus. So he took it serious, and he began to put me in front of people. And because he invested in me, and he took time, everyone that I've seen come to know Christ goes back to him. And then it goes back to the person that took time to invest in him and so forth. It's a ripple effect. And I hope that you're taking time to invest in somebody. This weekend we've talked about what it means to follow, what it means to be a follower of Christ, what it means to lead others and so forth. And guys, I hope that each one of us in this room is following after Christ. Today I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you 5 words, not 5 points, so rest easy, okay? I know what time it is. They have clocks back here, and I got to let you out at what, 1:15? I don't remember. But I'm going to be very, very good with your time. But let me ask you a few depressing questions, okay? The depressing part lasts only a few seconds, but just a few depressing questions, okay? You don't have to answer these out loud. But in life, have you ever felt like giving in? Okay, don't answer these out loud because we all have, right? But in life, have you ever felt like giving in? Have you ever felt like just quitting? Man, have you ever felt have you ever wished somebody would just throw in the towel? Man, I remember I didn't know my dad growing up. My grandpa was like my dad. He's the one that stepped in and did all that stuff with me that a dad should have done. And my grandpa, I remember him taking it. He was an Italian man and a farmer. He had the biggest hands I've ever seen in my life. And he would put that big hand behind his head, and I'd lay on his muscle and watch TV. And I remember watching George Foreman box. You guys remember that guy? He doesn't just make the clothes I wear from Walmart, okay? How many of y'all have a George Foreman grill under your sink right now? Okay, I'm with you, man, I remember, I don't know if George Foreman did this every time, but I know he did it at this fight. He was boxing, and as soon as the bell rang, he came out fighting. You guys okay over here? My goodness, y'all stay awake, okay? I might look over there. All right, but he came out boxing, like flying out of his corner. And whenever he flew out as a kid, I remember watching this thinking, man, this is awesome. This is is great. And then I learned, my grandpa taught me that if the manager thought that his person was getting beat up too much, all he had to do was take that towel and throw it in the ring, and they'd call the match. Have you ever been there? Man, have you ever wished that somebody would just throw in the towel? Like, look, I've had enough. Whenever DJ was sharing his heart, that's kind of some of those points where it felt like he was, where man, this is enough. But guys, God shows up, and let me say that differently. God never leaves. He's always there. And all you have to do is acknowledge that. All you have to do is take that step, and He is there with you. So let me ask you a couple more depressing questions, okay? Look, sometimes in life people get burned out, don't you? Sometimes in life people get burned out just with the pressures of life, but also we get burned out at church. Because a lot of times people find themselves coming to church and doing a lot of good things and going through a lot of good motions, but never really taking time to dig deep and to root themselves in who Christ is. We do a lot of stuff, but we don't take time to dig in and to root ourselves in Him. And we get burned out. So you ever get burned out with work? On Friday, you're dreading Monday. You ever get burned out with your friends, like whenever you move and they all disappeared off the face of the planet? Their trucks and trailers are nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? You ever get burned out with just the things that life throws at you? All right, so not all that's over with. Let me say something very, very important here. God, Jesus never gets burned out with you. He's always there. And He always desires to spend time with you. Now, that's pretty important, okay? Now, yeah, there are times He has to get in our face. There's times that He pushes us. But listen, He always desires to spend time with you. He always desires to hang out with you. And church, that's good news. And that's something that we need to hold on to, because you have a God that loves you even when it seems that we are unlovable. So what gets us through all those times in life that we get burned out, all those times in life that we feel like we can't move forward, that we can't go on, is that we have somebody in our corner that is cheering us on and that is there for us, and He's helping us to press on, telling us to get up, let's go, you have a job to do. I believe that God is our Heavenly Father, and I also believe that God is our Heavenly Coach. He's the person, man, you remember the coaches back in high school? Man, some of y'all are still in high school. Some of the coach that you probably don't like very much is probably the coach that gets in your face and pushes you to do more than you think you can. Can I get you to do something a little weird this morning? Get your wallet out. I'm just kidding. But a little weird. Trust me. You will not chant anything or repeat after me, nothing like that. But can you just, if you don't mind, will you raise your hands as high as you can? Nothing weird other than that, okay? Just as high as you can, okay? All right, now a little bit higher. Okay. You can put them back down. Okay. Now, so that's a good stretch, wasn't it? You guys hadn't slept at all. But here's the deal. Okay, here's what I saw from up here. I asked you about 3 times to raise your hands as high as you could. And you did, right? Hopefully. But when I said raise them a little bit higher, all over the room I saw hands go up higher. Makes no sense because you're already as high as you could go. But the way that God works is sometimes He has to get in our face and He has to push us because we limit ourselves and we stop way short. And God says, look, I know you can do it, but not through yourself, but through me. God knows He knows what you're capable of whenever you follow Him and you put Him first. It's not about you, it's about Him. But when you make this life about Him, He has a way of turning it to where not only does He get the most out of it, but you get the most out of it as well. So I want to give you 5 words this morning to make a part of your life. And I will not explain each 5 words, okay? I want to give these to you. And if you will make these 5 words a part of your everyday life, even Paul, if you'll make these 5 words, man, I promise you that God, man, it'll make a difference, okay? 5 words, here they are. I will because I am. Okay, think about that. I will because I am. Now, let me say it a little bit different. I will because He's God. Okay, the I am is not us. The I am is Him. I will because He's the great I am. You with me? You understand what I'm saying? I will because I am. See, now those that don't have a relationship with Christ, it might be hard to understand that statement. But for us that have taken that step, we've jumped into the arms of our loving God. We know who He is. We know the great I am. Therefore, we no longer have to walk around this world in that sleepwalker state of mind or that zombie, trance where we just go through the motions. But we know who the great I am is, and we desire a relationship with Him, and we spend time with Him. So how do we face everything that the world throws at us? How do we face all the times whenever people say, you're a Christian? I mean, why? How do we face all the doubt? How do we face all the hurt? How do we face all the junk that's thrown at us? Well, I will because I am, because it's about Him. And when your will is focused on Him, God has a way of doing great things in your life. If you got your Bibles, turn with me to Psalms 101. If not, it's going to be on the screen here. But Psalms 101 is where we're going to kind of hang out. I will jump around to a few other verses. But Psalms 101, this is David. David wrote this, and David, well, let me just confess this, okay? I was at a church one time preaching, and I asked everybody to turn to the scripture, and I could not find it in my Bible nowhere. So from now on, I mark everywhere. So I will get there before you because I have it marked. I'm not like a better flipper. I just have it marked, okay? Just so you know. But it's very embarrassing when you're the preacher and you can't find the book of the Bible in the Bible, okay? But Psalms 101, David wrote this. Let's read it. We're going to read the first 4 verses, and here it goes. It says, I will sing of loving kindness and justice. To thee, O Lord, I will sing praises. I will give heed to the blameless way. When will thou come to me? I will walk within my house in the integrity of my heart. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not fasten its grip on me. A perverse heart shall depart from me. I will know no evil. And he goes on, but I just want to cover these first 4 verses this morning. I believe that if we're not careful, we could read these 4 verses and we could totally miss what has taken place. There's a lot of times I think that I know this happens to me. It probably happens to a lot of us in this room, that a lot of times we open up the Bible whenever it's time for us to have our quiet time or spend time with God, and we'll read something, and then we'll close it, and we'll move on and totally miss what God has for us. I have to really focus. There are times I have to read stuff like 4 or 5 times because I don't comprehend stuff too well. My wife is here. A lot of times my wife's not with me because I travel full time and I get to go to different churches and preach. And she's at First Baptist Halton with our kids. But she's here this morning, so I have to really watch myself, and so I don't get in trouble at home. Just kidding, Margaret. But anyway, I don't even know what that has to do with nothing. Okay, it's not even in my notes. But pick on your wife. There it is. No, just kidding. But anyway, I believe if we're not careful, we could read these 4 verses and totally miss what's happening. Guys, in these 4 verses, they deal, David says something. He says, I will. You don't have to count it, okay? Just trust me. He says, I will 6 different times in these 4 verses. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what's the big deal? Well, I will, it's 2 very small words, but one very big, powerful decision is beside each one of them. And see, I will, it involves more than just your mouth. I will involves more than just words coming forth. I will involves all of you. When you tell somebody that you're going to do something, do it. You remember back in the day when you told somebody you were going to do something, you'd shake hands on it, and that covered it. You were good, right? Man, now you can't even shake hands, can you? I mean, it's like I walked up to several of you and I said, are you shaking? Because, we're in a weird time. I don't know what you do now when you tell somebody you're going to do something. Elbows? I don't know. It's really awkward, really weird. But, man, I wish we could get back to that, to where your handshake meant something. When you shook hands, you looked in the eyes, man, you knew you could trust that person. I will involves your heart. I will involves your mind. It involves your body. It involves your spirit. It is all consuming. When you tell somebody you're going to do it, do it. It is a very powerful step in these scriptures because I will is involved. It's combined with I am. So get this, okay? When the focus of I will is not about your will, but it's about His will, that's when you begin to see God do things. When it's not about you. When I will is not about your will, but it's about His will. That's when you begin to see God do things in your life. I will because I am. I will because He's God. Are y'all still awake? You still good? Okay, it's 11:18. Don't look at it. I know it's there, okay? We're doing good. This is great. Okay, God is the great I am. Jesus, the great I am. Man, I love that. I love those the titles all throughout the Bible. Great I am is one of my favorites. Let's look at the verse again, okay? Look at verse 1. It says, I will sing of loving kindness and justice. To thee, O Lord, I will sing praises. Do you ever find yourself just going throughout your day singing? You're like, I love to sing, DJ. I love it, man. Back up for you guys. I love that. I love to worship. At all the events that we get to do throughout the year, especially camps, I don't want to say depressed. I get sad when camp's over. We have 8 camps coming up this summer. And when it's over, I'm going to be sad. My wife's going to be ready to get home. But I'm going to be sad because worship, I love coming together with groups like this, man, and just worshiping every day. I love it. And my daughter, she came up to me. Like I wake up in the morning, and I like to sing, and I think if I'm awake after I've been up for a little while by myself, I think everybody should be awake, right? And I like to sing and have a good time, and my daughter asked me probably a couple of weeks ago, she knew that she could sleep in the next morning. She said, hey, Dad, please don't sing in the morning. Because she did not want to hear it. She wanted to be able to sleep, and I thought I had a beautiful voice. But anyway, in these 4 verses, okay, they deal with holy living, okay, not holy existing, not holy going through the motions, but they deal with holy living. And when we begin to understand who God is, we begin to get a glimpse of who He is, His holiness, His mercy, His justice, His forgiveness, His salvation, His kindness, His goodness. When we begin to get just a glimpse of who He is, we find a pure, energizing motive to live holy, man, to pursue after Him. A lot of people are putting stuff in their life to try to get a motive to just keep going, to keep pressing forward. When you put God there, man, you find a pure, energizing motive to live for Him, to pursue Him. And when you pursue after Him, man, you can't help but sing His praises. They pour out of you. You can't help it. Man, I hope that you're spending time with, I hope that we're spending time with Him. Wouldn't it be awesome if God looked at each one of us and He gave us a title like He gave David? Now, do you think that David pursued after God? How about you guys? Y'all still awake over here? Man, y'all, do you think David pursued after God? Yeah, absolutely. Man, God gave David a title, and who's working the camera? Does that bother y'all when I walk back and forth? Or is it automatic? It doesn't matter. Okay, I see you. Okay. All right, sorry. But God gave David a title, and you all know it, a man after, a man after His own heart. Man, I guess that's pretty important. Wouldn't it be awesome if God looked at each one of us and said, man, that's a person, that's a man, that's a woman after my own heart. Now, we could give ourselves a title. The name of our ministry is Insane Ministries. And I came up with that years ago because I was a middle school minister and they drove me crazy. I'm kidding, just kidding. But we came up with that because the thought behind Insane Ministries was crazy for the King, crazy for Jesus. And guys, that's cool that I can give myself a name like that, but it doesn't really mean anything unless my actions back it up. But how cool is it when God gives you a name? Like, man, a man after my own heart. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty neat. So real quick, DJ talked too long, so I'm trying to hurry. Let's see where we are. Okay, so think about David. Remember when David was a young boy? We just read some of the stuff that he has here in Psalms 101. But you remember when he was a young boy and he was back home. And if you want to turn here, you can. If not, just listen. We're going to go back to Psalms 101. But I'm fixing to read out of 1 Samuel 17. And if you don't have to turn there, you can listen. But in 1 Samuel 17, David, his dad called him. Okay, his dad called him and he said he was talking to him because his brothers were out at battle. And you remember Goliath? Remember that guy? Well, David's brothers were at battle, and David's dad wanted to know how his brothers were doing. If you have kids, if you're a parent in this room, or you have if you have friends that you check on, man, you want to know how they're doing, right? My mom has already called me this morning. All right, I'm 42, and it don't matter. All right, don't matter how old you get. My mom has called me this morning. She's checked on me. She checked on me yesterday. Sometimes I don't tell her when I'm going out of town because I don't want her to worry. All right, but don't tell her I said that unless this is recorded. All right, but 1 Samuel 17, let me read something to you. Verses 17 and 18. It says, Then Jesse said to David, his son, Take now for your brothers an ephah of this roasted grain and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp of your brothers. Bring also these 10 cuts of cheese to the commander of their 1,000, and look into the welfare of your brothers and bring back news of them. So here's what's going on, okay? David's dad, he said, look, I want to know how your brothers are doing. And so he grabbed David. He said, take this food, take this to your brothers. And then he sent cheese. I love cheese. You like cheese? I like it a lot. There are times I'm on the road, I stop at Walmart and I buy those little chunks of cheese that's already cut to perfectly fit in your mouth. But once that stuff, if it's cold, that's great. Once that stuff gets a little gooey, that's nasty, all right? The only way I want my cheese melted is if it's over some chips, all right? I don't need it melted in my car while I'm trying to eat it like that. So, but David carried cheese. My mind wonders. I'm like, how did he carry this cheese? It probably wasn't like the cheese we have at Walmart, okay? It's probably, the blind. I know. Some of y'all are way overthinking this, okay? I know probably what it was. But anyway, it's interesting that David's dad said, hey, take some stuff for your brothers, but also take some stuff for their boss man. Because David's dad knew that if you took care of the boss man will take care of your kids, right? And so David's dad was looking out for his welfare as well. And so David pulls up on the scene. He sees his brothers. He sees everyone else basically cowering back, and they're hiding from a man named Goliath. David hears what Goliath is saying. I'm going fast because we got to hurry. David hears what Goliath is saying, and David's not having it. You ever had your mom ever said, I'm not having it? I'm just not having it. David wasn't having it. He wasn't putting up with what was going on. All right. He didn't like that Goliath was getting up and was taunting. He was saying things about David's God, about God. And David didn't like it. David was bold and on fire here. And he stood up. And let me read to you what's going on. You guys know the story. Somewhere around verse 41. This is what it says. Then the Philistine came on and approached David with a shield bearer in front of him. Goliath was huge. He would have to duck down coming through these doors. If he walked in, every one of us would feel intimidated. This guy was huge. And not only did he have all this stuff, but he had a guy in front of him holding a shield. It's a little easy to go to battle when you got somebody guarding you like that, right? David had somebody guarding him as well. He just couldn't be seen like Goliath's shield bearer could. Here we go. All right, verse 42, it says, when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and with a handsome appearance. And the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? The Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine also said to David, come to me and I will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin. Don't forget about that other guy, the shield bearer, right? But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. And you guys know the story, what happens from there. But I want you to see that David is bold. He is on fire. And it's not because he followed someone who was false. It's because he followed the living God. He followed God, and he spent time with him. You know, when David was in the fields taking care of the sheep, you know he was singing. You know he was worshiping his God. He had to, because it prepared him for this very moment where he is bold and he's on fire, he's standing up. Now fast forward, okay? Fast forward, we're going to go to 2 Samuel. You don't have to turn unless you want to. 2 Samuel something, 11. Let's go there and listen to what's taking place, okay? You guys know these stories, but I want you to get refocused on some of the stuff that David went through. So in 2 Samuel 11, let me read what's happening. It says, we're in verse 1. It says, then it happened in the spring at the time when kings go out to battle that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all of Israel, and they destroyed the sons of Ammon. They besieged Rabbah, but David stayed in Jerusalem. All right, so where was David? David was at home, right? David was well, let me tell you exactly. It says, when it happened in the spring, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab. So David was at home. Look at verse 2. When evening came, so David was laying down. When evening came, David arose from his bed, and he walked around on the roof of the king's house. David should have been somewhere. David wasn't where David should have been. Now, I believe with all of my heart, here's what's taking place. I believe that David was having a hard time sleeping. You ever gone to sleep with something on your mind? And you struggle a little bit, right? David was having a hard time sleeping. He arose from his bed. He went up on the roof. And I believe, like I said, with all of my heart, that David knew what he was doing. That David went on that roof because he knew the hour it was, and he knew that where he was going, what he was going to see. Because I believe that David should have been at battle. David should have never been at home. And he was covering up one sin with another. He was covering up one thing with another. You ever done that? You ever messed up? You ever done something wrong and instead of fessing up to it, you do something else to try to cover up that? It spirals out of control. Now, we see kids do that all the time, but adults, we do that all the time also. We think we get away with it more because we're adults, but we don't, because God knows, right? God knows, so we have to be careful. Anyway, here's in 2 Samuel, David goes up on the roof. And let me see. He saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful in appearance. David sent and inquired about the woman. You guys know the story, okay? David sees this lady bathing. What's her name? Y'all still away? All right, Bathsheba. You ever thought about that? She's bathing. Bathsheba. You think that God has a sense of heat? Anyway, I think that God did that on purpose. Anyway, so she's bathing. David sees her, and his eyes gave into sin. And then that sin gave into iniquity. See, sin is when you do something wrong. Iniquity is when your heart longs for it. David's eyes gave into sin, and that sin, man, gave into iniquity. He longed for what he saw, and he sent for her. She came over. David did things that he should not have done. Bathsheba did things that she should not have done. And so David then sent for her husband. You know the story. Sent for her husband Uriah to come home. He tried to cover up that sin with something else. And Uriah didn't even go into his house that night to spend time with his wife. Instead, he stayed outside. And then David sent him back because his plan didn't work. He sent him back to the front line. He pulled all the men back. Uriah was killed. So now David has sinned another time. David just had somebody killed. This is a guy that God looked at and said, man, that's a man after my own heart. You ever messed up? You ever done something pretty bad and you think, well, God, you can't use me? I promise you he can. I promise you. If he can use David, my goodness, he can use any one of us in this room. David's, well, let me move on, okay? I see the clock. All right, so 2 Samuel 12. David, I want you to understand that sometime later, David did marry Bathsheba, okay? And then sometime later, a guy showed up on the scene, a guy named Nathan. Nathan was coming on behalf of God to talk to David. And let me read a little bit of it to you. No, let me don't. Let me don't. Is that proper? Where's my wife? Don't call me out. But so Nathan comes on the scene, and Nathan shares a story with David. And he said, David, there's this guy who's treating someone wrong. And he laid out this whole story, and David's getting worked up. David's getting upset. And he says, look, that guy needs to be dealt with. And Nathan looks at David, and he said, that guy is you. You're the one who's doing wrong. You're the one who needs to be dealt with. And man, David broke down. David repented. David turned from his ways. In verse 20 of 2 Samuel 12, it says, so David arose from the ground. He washed, he anointed himself. He changed his clothes, and he came into the house of the Lord. He worshiped. Then he came to his own house, and then when he requested, they set food before him, and he ate. David was going through a time of fasting. When Nathan came, Nathan talked with him. David said, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan said, the Lord also has taken away your sin. You shall not die. It got his attention. He turned, and he began to put his focus where it needed to be. But I'm sure David still had times where he messed up. But guess what? God still loved him. God still used him. It doesn't make sense. How can he do that? How can David pursue after God after what he's done? Well, I will because I am. How do you follow God after you've messed up? I will because I am. It's not about you. It's about you putting him first and then using his strength and letting him walk with you and letting him be the leader. I will because I am. Now, let's see. Let's keep going. I'm about to read these verses in Psalms 101 again to you. And this time I want you to listen as if David himself is right here. David's preaching to you. By the way, if you got David's resume for pastor and you looked at all the stuff he'd done wrong, would you hire him? Or would you look past his past and see what God is doing through him? What about Paul? My goodness. If Paul gave you his resume, you know, on the way to Damascus, I was going to go kill Christians, but God got my attention. Would you be like, oh, okay. Why don't we'll put you over here on this side? Or would you take him serious? But God got my attention, man. Look, man, you guys have a huge responsibility, don't you? You trust God and you follow him. How are you going to find a pastor? I will because I am. And by the way, you've got a great guy filling in right now. And wherever God puts Brad and Leanne, they will do good because, man, they're following after God. And so, man, trust that leadership. All right, let's keep going. Brad, that's $20. Okay. So anyway, have you ever told your kids, man, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. What, you remember that? I got the T-shirt. Remember that? We said that all the time. But have you ever just told your kids to trust you and they look at you like you're crazy? If David was standing in front of you right now and he was about to go over these verses with you, here's what David would say. David would say, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I've been there, I've done that. Now listen to these verses again as David, as if he was reading them to you. He says, I will sing of loving kindness and justice. To thee, O Lord, I will sing praises. And then David might go back to the time when he was in the field and he was bold and on fire, man. He was spending time with God. It equipped him for whenever he spent time in front of Goliath, man, because of the time that he spent out in the field praising God. And then he would go on to verse 2. I will give heed to the blameless way. When will thou come to me? I will walk within my house in the integrity of my heart. Guys, how you walk? Do you walk in integrity? How do you walk when no one's watching you? How do you walk when you're at home and no one's around? How do you walk whenever the computer's on? How do you walk whenever you're watching TV? Man, I hope that we're walking in integrity. Integrity is huge. But listen, if you've messed up, don't stay down, because God can still use you. I will because I am. He doesn't leave you breathing if he still has a reason for you being here. Trust him. Follow him, okay? Keep going. Verse 3. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. Now, I'm not saying Bathsheba was worthless by no means. She was someone that God had a purpose. God had a plan for her, just like he's got a plan for us. But what David is saying here is there were times that he set things before his eyes that destroyed him. There were things that he set before his eyes that tore him down. And let's just be honest, man. For a lot of people, pornography is one of those things. And David said, man, I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. I hate the work of those who fall away. That was David. You think he went through a time of hating himself? He says, I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not fasten its grip on me. Verse 4, a perverse heart shall depart from me. I will know no evil. David says, never again. He says, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to allow it to grab onto me. Never again am I going to give in to this. I will because I am. So, who is this I am? Well, he is the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-consuming God. He is I am. You remember back in Exodus, whenever God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, and this is one of those scriptures that I remember getting frustrated as a teenager. I remember listening to my Sunday school teacher talk about I am. Talk about the great I am. And I remember getting a little frustrated. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But whenever Moses stood in front of that burning bush and he was talking to God and God was talking back to him, here's what took place. God told Moses to go to Pharaoh, tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And if he doesn't, all these things are going to start happening. And Moses started trying to crawfish out of it. You know, you ever done that with God? Well, someone else is better at that. God, I don't really speak well. Well, guess what? I got that covered. God took care of every excuse that Moses had. And Moses said, hey, who do I tell Pharaoh sent me? And God said, you tell him I am sent you. And that bothered me, because I'm like, God, why don't you just tell him that God sent you? You know, I mean, it bothered me for years. And then I got a little glimpse of what he meant. You see, I am is in the present tense. That means that he's active then and he's active now. So whenever God told Moses to tell Pharaoh that I am sent you, he wanted him to know that he's always active. Okay, God's name I am, it declares that he is unchanging, he's constant, he's unending, he's always present, and he's always God. He's always going to be there. So when God told Moses to go to Pharaoh, you tell Pharaoh that I am has sent you, he was sending a message to Pharaoh, but he was also sending a message to Moses, because if you remember, Moses wasn't where he was supposed to be either. Moses fled on foot. Remember this? Because Moses got into a fight. Moses killed a guy out of self-defense for someone else. Moses wasn't where he should have been. I believe that God was getting his attention, and he was telling him something very specific. He was saying, yeah, you go tell Pharaoh, but you need to remember who I am as well. He was telling him, look, I am the center of everything. I am running the show. I am the same every day forever. I am the owner of everything. I am the creator. I am the sustainer of life. I am more than enough. I am inexhaustible. I am immeasurable. I am the King of kings. I am the Lord of lords. And then he says, look, I am God. I know what I'm doing. Trust me. Follow me. Guys, how many of us just need to come to a point today to where we say, you know what? You are God. You are the great I am. God, I don't understand all of it, but here's the deal. I will because I am. One day, the great I am is going to return. One day, he's coming back. I don't know exactly when that is. Neither do you, right? But he's coming. How will he find his church? You know, we just talked about following. How will he find his church? Will he find you following after him? We're going to watch a video real quick. After this video, the band's going to come up during the video, and after this video, we're going to go into our invitation. I'm going to get up and talk to you just for a second when this video's over, but you know this song. It's a rap song. I'm just kidding. Y'all awake? All right, just wanted to check. All right, this is a song that you will love, I promise. Pay attention to the words, listen to it, and when this is over, I'll get up and close us out.